noon Eastern Time. We're a group of mental health professionals, and we work through the American Psychological Association's trauma division so that we can help people who are dealing with the trauma of COVID and looking at different ways that we can help other mental health professionals and just all the people who want to be on our Facebook page. Facebook COVID IPV is the name of the group, and people who are joining on the Zoom call. So I'm going to introduce the mental health people who are on right now. I'll tell you, we're international. I'm here from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Dr. Gazelle Gaviria is also here from Florida, even though her background looks like she's in Colombia. We've got Dr. Marilyn Safer, who is in Haifa, Israel, and Dr. Brittany. Well, Brittany's not quite a doctor yet, but she's an almost doctor, Brittany Geddes, who's in Pennsylvania. Dr. Patricia Villavicencio, she's in Madrid, Spain. We've got Amy Lee, who is in the Bay Area in California. You can see we're really all over the world. And what we're going to do today, like other days, is we're going to talk about a topic that's very important to all of us who are working from home but using computer, and that's Zoom fatigue. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Eileen Serlin, who is my co-host, who is in San Francisco, California, and she's going to introduce wonderful presenters today. And then they're going to speak for a little bit, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So if you're on Facebook, please type in your questions. We're going to be looking at them, and we'll read them into our recording. As I'm saying, we are going to be recording today. So Eileen Serlin, please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon or evening. It's morning here. It's morning here in the Bay Area, 70 or 60 degrees here. I am the chair. I'm working with the task force from the Division 56 Interdivisional Task Force on COVID. Our particular work group is called International Whole Person Group. So we are really happy to be collaborating with the IPV group now. We have experts from various aspects of working with COVID and trauma. Ours particularly deals with both international and what we're calling somatic and creative arts, ways of working with trauma. So as we know, not all trauma is verbal or it can be dealt with verbally. A lot of it's in the body, a lot of the emotions we're feeling in the body. And so we work with stress, resilience, about how to kind of work with those things in the body. Today's topic happens to be one of the new aspects of COVID is now Zoom. And all of us, many of us are living on Zoom and digitally. And so there's a whole new host of issues that come up, from neck issues and eye strain and Zoom fatigue and all the other things that have been, it's a whole new word now, Zoom fatigue. So I've invited two experts from our committee who have very innovative and creative ways of working with Zoom fatigue. First is Dr. Eric Pepper, who is head of the Holistic Health Department at San Francisco State University here, who's just written a new book on tech stress, dealing with very practical issues about this. And Jamie McHugh, who's a well-known artist, dancer, somatic practitioner all over the world, who has also developed some experiential ways that we hope you can work with yourself after this presentation today and help you work with Zoom fatigue and tech stress. Thanks. Dr. Pepper.
Well, Eileen, thank you so much for the opportunity to share and to have this discussion with each other. I'm going to share my screen, which will probably be easier. Here you see my momentary ad on our new book. And also anybody has a question, you can always email me for more information. If I think about this, let me click on the screen here for me. I start to think about Zoom fatigue, or is it COVID fatigue? They're really intertwined. So if I think about this for a moment, this is a complex slide. there's some suggestive areas where we either should do research or look at interventions. Think of that we all are sitting in front of screens right now, which we're doing even right now. That means we have immobility and we have lack of movement that usually leads to lower energy, often associated with slowly getting more depressed and feeling immobility. We have a more collapsed posture. Our head is forward. That means that pulls up past memories of hopelessness more easily. We tend to have reduced communication cues, especially in a larger group where people are just being more passive. Again, that leads to more isolation and exhaustion. We do more multitasking. As you're on this call here or present, you may be looking at your email at the same time, texting or whatever. Again, that leads to increased fatigue, possibly anxiety. We have the major ergonomic issues where, you know, we have moved from our offices to our kitchen table. Sometimes, you know, as parents, we may have children who in one bedroom is going to school to another school. None of those positions are very good. That leads to more physical discomfort. And then because we look at the screen all the time, we focus, our eyes have to converge, the lens has to, the muscles around the lens contract, we get eye fatigue, and that leads to all physical discomfort. And then COVID itself, you know, which I would say they're interactive, they really are biting each other's tail in some ways. We have the economic insecurity, increasing anxiety. We have a significant reduction in social connection, increases loneliness, possibly depression, which we know. There's now a 4 to 7-fold increase in depression rates. We have worries about health concerns or just waiting around for our tests. Or will we get the vaccination, increasing anxiety? And we have especially the absence of physical contact and spontaneous social connections, which often leads to more loneliness and depression, if I think about this. When I ask students at the university, when we did this study with Eric and others, what is your experience going to Zoom classes? That's different than purely online classes. You know, I make a separate, these are then synchronous Zoom class, often larger classes where you're a little postage stamp on the screen. And what they then report is that almost all reported have more difficulty. They find it more difficult and they're more exhausted. What do people experience? I thought I would just read this, some of them. After a while, I don't know if you can still see it all. Let me just change it this way. I need to read it. After a while, all seems the same. Sitting, looking at the screen while working, taking classes, entertaining, streaming videos, and socializing. The longer I sit and watch screens, the more I tend to feel drained and passive. The more challenging it is to be present, productive, and pay attention. Or another student. Now we're forced to stay at home. It's hard to find time by myself, for myself, time to study, or time to get away. It's easy to get distracted or go a bit stir crazy. I find that online learning is more difficult for me because it's hard to stay concentrated. These are the most common experiences. And then we have the physical problems. I'm not going to make this whole list, which is headache, backache, stomach aches. We get as a response over or under eating, over or under sleeping, and especially lower rates of physical activity. That is really one of the big categories. We have more ruminating thoughts. And I pointed out earlier, the 3 to 4-fold increase in psychological stress in 2020 compared to 2018. Notice it goes from about 3.9% to more than 13%. Other data now shows that 7-fold increase. And maybe it's also our 24 lifestyle. You know, we all live in the same rooms. We have more physical family violence. And here's how we're looking at our cell phones in bed. And then in social settings, we have real problems. And then this is how we spend our times or used to spend our times. But one of the things we forget is that by sitting in front of the computer, which we're all doing even now as we listen to this talk, our posture is often slouched. Our head may be forward. And when we do that, we get this increased neck and shoulder tension for which we're totally unaware. And here, tools that people can use is like muscle biofeedback or other ways to monitor that. So posture is critical in a way that's really relates to ergonomics as well. If you look at it differently, when people collapse like this, they really get, in fact, compression even in their nose and nasal cavities, their jaw pressure. They get more neck and shoulder tension. They get pressure in their chest. You know, they tend to breathe shallower, which increases anxiety most likely. They have more pressure or increased pressure in the abdomen that affects digestion. It's really just difficult. And we can sit like this, not for 1 minute. We sit like this for hours at a time. Help, as all of you can see. And what is intriguing is, you know, that we cannot rely upon ourselves. And I think that's the one lesson I have learned for myself with my students and clients, and for myself, that I cannot rely upon myself to remind myself to get up or that I'm slouching. So now if we did a study, for example, using a little app, which uses the camera on your computer, which is developed by Upright Desktop. And you just sit there, and whenever you slouch, it makes a little noise. Or you can set time delay, so you go from this upright position to collapse. And when we do that, and if I now act on it, that's the challenge. Now, oh, I'm slouching. How come I'm slouching? It's posture. I have depressive thoughts. I'm exhausted. Now it becomes an external reminder to say, wait, do something about this. And when you do that, in fact, as you can see here, this is our pilot study, which is just in press. You can see people overall, when they use this kind of feedback device compared to not using it, they have a decrease in eye discomfort, decrease in shoulder pain, decrease in back pain, decrease in their self-rating on a scale from 0 to 10 of students on depression, anxiety, and unmotivated. Just do it yourself for a moment. Just get up, because that's the one piece you can do. Just get up for a moment. Just do it. And notice how hard it is to do that. If you have another partner in your room, put your back to their partner, or otherwise put your back even against the wall. And now just rub your back and forth like you're massaging each other, and just do that. And then reach up, really reach up, look up. That's enough. And quick, I'll let you sit for a moment easily again. And probably you felt slightly more aroused. And notice also how challenging it was to get yourself to get up. That's where we need our social support. We need our next piece of social support. I'll add one more study, which I think is really useful for students. And I've thought of this because so many students are going back to school on Zoom. And Zoom is different in a one-to-one relationship, or 1, 2, 3, or 4, because then I can see the facial expressions. And I feel like I'm really communicating with you. But when I'm doing in a Zoom class, an asynchronous class, where I have these 40 or 30 or 25 usually little postage stamp faces, the people sit empty, they sit flaccid, they have flat faces, they appear non-responsive, which is more challenging for the instructor as they don't get feedback, or for the therapist that the person doesn't respond. And so what we did in this study, asked students to do simple things, to rate their energy level, rate their attention, rate their involvement in a normal class. And the next time the class met, to purposely be animated. So that means as the person is speaking or the slides are shown, you say, yes, I agree with that. No, wait a minute, that's a pile of whatever, you know, but be interactive like you would do in a normal interaction. And what you see here so nicely is that people then rate their energy went way up, their attention went up, their involvement went up. And when you listen, for 80% of the students who did it, they reported it was their focus of attention could stay present. They didn't have to look at the material again. They remembered it, and they found it a much better learning experience. Because the real key is, how can you configure yourself to be in an optimum learning state? And that is really one of these tasks which we are doing. And finally, to summarize for tech stress, and we've written many of these in our book, so that's our momentary ad. The key is take many breaks. Always optimize the ergonomics, which we could talk about for a long time. Really observe your posture. Are you slouching? If so, really shift. And here, doing any kind of activity is useful. Dance, movement, art makes a difference. Remember, most of us are unaware that we have tension. So for that, a tool of biofeedback, I think, is really useful. Under stress, especially our political system right now, we may freeze, we hold our breath, really breathe and regenerate. And for so many, we sit on the couch, slouching, watching one streaming video after another. Turn off your screens 45 minutes before going to bed. And while socializing, turn off your devices, or basically be present with the person versus being distracted by the vibration in your pocket or so. And then while working, really reduce interruptions. That means turn off the notifications. There are many more things, but on that note, I hope that's useful.
Thanks very much, Eric. And suddenly we're all squirming aware of how we're sitting, and hopefully you've done that. Jamie McHugh, are you ready? You're muted.
Well, that was a lot. I could take the next 20 minutes just digesting all of Eric's riches. But first of all, I just want to say, let's all just take a collective. It's what I like to call the pressure cooker breath. You all remember pressure cookers where you'd seal it and put the rice in and the water, and there's a little valve so that blows off the steam so it doesn't explode. The pressure cooker breath is a breath you can do throughout the day. It's free, doesn't require an app. It just remembers, your own body. Okay. So I could say a lot about Zoom fatigue, but I simply want to start by saying COVID has revealed to us how our different skill sets can inform our relationship to the epidemic. And it's been really an up-leveling, in a sense, because all of a sudden we've all had to become dancers. If you go out in public, you need to be aware of where you are in space, the people around you. When all of a sudden, because of course everybody's a little panicky, anxious, people freeze. How do you rebound? How do you stop? How do you shift direction? With Zoom, we've all had to become DJs, poets, because part of this technology, as you know, technology can either amplify who you are or distort who you are. Now, I'm going to do one little focus today, because this is my biggest thing I really, 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 really want therapists and educators to understand. I'm going to ask you all to level up and buy a microphone. Now, I'm going to undo my microphone for a second so you can hear the difference in my voice. All of a sudden, I'm still speaking the same way I was before, but now I'm going to plug in again. Okay, sorry, because this is one of the things, of course, that all this movement that, is also hard with Zoom. What do we know about the sound of our voices? Right? And because we're reduced on Zoom to a visual representation and an auditory representation, the quality of our voice is important. Because if I'm working really hard to hear your voice, my brain is working double time. And so a lot of the depletion that happens on Zoom is lack of good sound quality. Partly that is a microphone, partly that is your room. So for example, having like carpet or things on the wall so it doesn't sound like you're doing your therapy session in a barn, right? Hello, hi. And as we all know, in the therapeutic guiding encounter, there is so much more sensitivity to cues, right? I'm just going to back up a second. Sound vibration. Some of you may be aware of the work of Alfred Tomatis, who was the French researcher. That's a whole other story, but suffice it to say, the three takeaways from Tomatis in his research was the ear has three functions. The primary function of the ear is to charge the brain with energy. I'll say that again. The primary function of the ear is to charge the brain with energy. So the tone, the quality of sound can either distress us or animate us. The second function of the ear is equilibrium responses, right? And this is where it gets really kind of funky on Zoom, because our sense of balance is contingent upon our inner ear and how we focus on space, right? So it's that relationship between our eyes and our inner ear that allows us to find our center or to be off balance. So that's the second function of the ear. The third function of the ear is listening. Now, I find that really fascinating because, of course, if you ask somebody, what's the ear for? Oh, well, it's to listen. The quality of sound and how we transmit sound is essential. And we have all become acclimated to noise pollution, constant erratic sounds, right? And we all know on Zoom, if all of a sudden somebody does something like, puts down a cup or something like that, and you've got a lot of people and they're all unmuted and everybody's like, and of course we can all tolerate it. But the question is, how can we best modify our environments to, in a sense, create more ease? Because let's face it, these are challenging times. They're going to get more challenging. The headline I read today is 2020 turns out to be one of the hottest years in terms of climate change. So, my friends, I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but I do want to say how we move forward in life. We're not going back to normal. That's both the good news and the bad news. But we're not going back to what we thought was normal. So we have to find new ways to communicate. And let's face it, this mechanism of Zoom is definitely going to be happening for a long time. So how can we best work with the technology in a way that allows us to have a presence in the world, but also presence with ourselves that's easier, more sustainable, and easy? What did I want to say? I just want to kind of, because of course this is a therapeutic community, just to relate sound quality of voice to Milton Erickson, hypnosis, Hakomi. Right? So there are different streams in our clinical practice that we all know where sound, cadence of voice, quality is important. And of course, Stephen Porges's work with the polyvagal theory and his safe and sound protocols. So I guess the bottom line is a simple thing that you can do for yourself, your clients, and friends. Invest in a microphone. And the reason I got this microphone in the first place is I was being interviewed for a podcast some years ago, and afterwards I said to the woman, I said, "You've got such great sound. What are you using?" So she told me about this mic, and it's been beneficial. I will put in the chat box for those of you who are interested what the mic is. But I think it's a really good investment, and this is a way we can help ourselves and our friends with sound. And let's take one more pressure cooker breath just for fun. Because that was just a mouthful. Okay. Thank you.
Jamie, I want to thank you for introducing us to the pause between things, so that as we digest information, Eric's talk, input, we really need not just to stand up and stretch, as Eric said, but just to breathe out and kind of release some of that. We're all on information overload as well. So that moment just to breathe, as you said, doesn't take any apps, is not, but between things. So we're not only poster stamp images, but information relentlessly, which some of us are. I just want to raise a quick question. What about these? You have any comments about these earphones, microphones most of us have?
You know, they're okay. They're better than nothing. Let's put it that way. I mean, if you think about it this way, these are designed for podcasts. So knowing that, and that's what I mean, that's why we're all, in a sense, called to be DJs these days, to think about, the equipment we use, because it does make such a big difference, especially when our sensory frame of reference is so limited.
And thanks again for reminding us about the environment we work in, whether it's ancillary noises or physical distractions, really impacts the therapeutic or the communication relationship, which is so important. And I guess now we have time for comments, questions. Anyone, any reactions to these talks? Eric, you're muted. Eric.
You're muted.
Microphone.
Here we are. I use a microphone too, not as fancy, and I totally agree with Jamie, and I think that's the first step. The second one is equally, think of your visual frame. Because when we work with clients or others, part of the coaching is also teaching people how to make themselves visible and be aware that there's a background that may impact you, the relationship to light, and that you are visible. And so many people, when you look at them, their facial expressions are not visible because there's glare behind them, etc. So I think giving some simple guidelines of how to sit, or if you want to look at the person more, they need to be further away than just this distance, because maybe you want to see the whole body movement when they talk. And again, we tend to mainly take this portrait look. That's the only sense of communication. And so in the therapeutic environment and teaching environment, it's often useful to really coach people and give them guidelines how to set up their camera. Because some of the laptops, like most of you, I have a different camera than on my laptop, because my laptop camera is at the base of my keyboard. That means you get this, I always look like this. So I decided, no, I want to be able to look more into the camera at times to get a direct look. And these are the small ones. And then to remember yourself that you need to look at the camera, because I tend to want to look at the screen who is speaking. That means I'm not making contact to the person. And that is often really challenging for me to remember that. And then I don't always like to look at myself. This is the first time in my whole life I've ever looked at myself while speaking, except in the mirror, which I try to avoid. And so I can now take myself away by just essentially doing a right click on my own little picture. I hide myself and now I disappear. And it makes me less self-conscious.
Can I add one thing, Eric? I'm just going to show these lights that I have. I can put them in the chat so that I'm getting lights from both sides and avoiding the glare from in front and behind. And they're simple and easy to set up at home. We have to convert our home environment to little mini studios now. Patricia's got one. Excellent. You can put your hand phone right there if you want to tape yourself visually from the front. Yeah. Great. Any other ideas for how to minimize stress from Zoom? Lenore.
Yeah, I wanted to share with you. I've been doing some reading about that and looking at eye strain. So I'm gonna, if you give me a moment, I'm going to share my screen and show you just I prepared a couple of little exercises that we might want to do to take a look at it. And I'm going to remove my little hand strain. I forgot I was wearing it. My little brace that I have. So let me just see if I can pull up my slides.
While I was doing that, I just want to say that there's a big difference in hearing Jamie and Eric speaking and the way the rest of us are speaking using the mics that are in the camera, especially if you have some hearing problems and you might be using hearing aids. That's a very important thing. And I must say today I'm using a new chair. I bought a chair that has orthopedic supports because I felt that I was suffering. So this meeting was very timely for me, reinforcing thinking about that.
That's great. Okay, I think I've got it. There we go. So some people call Zoom fatigue as being visual. So I was delighted that we've got now posture and body, and we have ear and listening. And so here's a little bit about visual. How do we know that our eyes are getting tired? Well, we know the usual way. We get headaches, we have itchy eyes, we have difficulty focusing. Sometimes people have too much tears and watery eyes. Some people get very dry eyes. Some people even have double vision or increased sensitivity to the light. So even though some of those lights are really very good, for other people, they can be too overly sensitive. So we have to figure out how each of us can use it. So here's some of the ideas that you can do. The first one, which is called 20-20-20. We can think about 20/20 vision. Think about every 20 minutes, make sure that you look 20 feet away. So you take your eyes off the screen, look away 20 feet, and then come back. Do that for 20 seconds, then come back. That's going to relax the muscle inside your eye that allows your eye to focus. So if you continue to stare at it and you don't do it, your muscles are going to get tight just like it would in any other kind of overuse of a muscle. So it's a simple exercise, and hopefully you're all doing that while I get to the next slide. Here is what they call eye yoga. I love the term, and it's a little bit complicated. I want you to follow me along if you want. The first one is take your eyes and look to the left and hold it there for a second or two. Then look to the right, hold it there. Try not to move your head, just your eyes. Remember, some of you go to the ophthalmologist and you do those crazy field tests. This is the same kind of thing. Look up, hold it, then look down, hold it. Then close your eyes and relax them for a minute. Do that 4 times. I'm sorry, wouldn't it always be when you're presenting that you get interrupted? So that's eye yoga. Look to the left, hold, look to the right, hold, look up, hold, look down, hold, then close your eyes and relax. Do it for 4 times. The other are a little bit easier than the exercises. These are things that we've been talking about, like getting a microphone. You could get glasses with special coating to avoid the glare. So for those of you who use contact lenses, you may want to switch to those kinds of glasses while you're sitting at the computer. That can be helpful for people, particularly if your eyes are very sensitive. Again, make sure your lighting is appropriate for you and try to avoid fluorescent lighting. I was looking at those lights that were held up, Eileen's and Patricia's, and wondered if they were fluorescent or not. But the advice is fluorescent lighting seems to cause more eye fatigue quicker than non-fluorescent. And the suggestion is use a floor lamp, and you can move floor lamps around wherever you are. That's what we've got. And I've also got, I don't know if you can see it, but I have a desk lamp that also has very nice lighting. You can see how the light can shine on anything that you really want it to. So those are some of the ideas that I had and that I wanted to share with you to add to the knowledge that we're trying to really share with each other.
And one more, Lenore, if I may say, I was just thinking, thank you, that I invested in, you can also get a screen that's no glare on your computer. I invested in a desktop, a new fancy Mac, big enough so I'm not squinched. And for a little more, it's a non-glare screen, which helps a lot.
Great.
Any other great ideas?
Well, you can do palming. It's also a very useful technique where you bring your, you rest your
Elbows?
you put your elbows on some books so they're easily high. You then let your head rest against your palms and close your eyes and just essentially see black and just rest and relax. There's no pressure on the cheeks, but you're just sitting there. So the elbows have to be high enough up so you can relax your shoulders. It's a classic old technique from the Bates techniques. And the other part I put in the chat box, there's a great book with many of these practices by Mayer Schneider called Vision for Life.
I like a warm washcloth at the end of a day. There's nothing like that warm heat just over your eyes. Yeah.
This is more related to posture than vision, but I found one of the most helpful things that I've done since we're sitting so much, and I do have some back issues, is I invested in a standing desk. So that enables me also to kind of adjust my posture, that I can sometimes be standing. I can vary the height of it if I am doing kind of paperwork or notes. I've got an exercise ball sometimes that I can sit on as well. So really just kind of varying the surface. And I also try to, at least with certain clients, not do video sessions, do sessions by phone. And when I do that, I'm able to be kind of more active, walk while I'm doing it, stand, stretch a little.
Great.
I was going to add one more thing, of course, that we know that a lot of metabolic energy goes into being upright. So simply to lie down midway in your day, 5 minutes, lie on the ground, give over to gravity, and then you can also palm and do eye yoga and do it all at the same time. It can be a little fun, little synergistic practice of dropping into gravity, breathing, releasing your breath, and enjoying. And I really want to add this. This is a very important thing. Our bodies are sources of pleasure. Do not underestimate the power of pleasure and your own sensual experience. Because if you think about, we are biological creatures. And as Antonio Damasio pointed out, creatures open towards pleasure and close against pain. It's pretty simple. So be proactive and have sensory pleasure to enjoy yourself as a human animal.
Jamie, I am totally agreeing with you. with all this, and I have a problem, like personally, and if my, not with the concepts, but it was just like the reminder of the sitting or standing desk. It was only when, I guess, Michelle reminded me about about the standing desk. I pressed the button on my desk to make it go into standing. So I realized that Eric Pepper has a very poor sense of awareness, and most we get so captured by the task, and we don't do all these useful things. So I would love to hear feedback. How can I teach myself, my colleagues, my clients, my students to do all those interruptions? Because that seems the issue when we're so captured by the computer.
I think it's so important for us to remind each other as well as ourselves.
Yes.
To do these, because I'm just like you, Eric. I don't know I have to do it until my back starts to hurt, or I feel myself squirming. You know, I just got a new puppy, and I watched that little puppy. That puppy knows exactly what's going on in her little body, and she tells me, you know, when she has to go to the bathroom, she tells me. Of course, she doesn't use the paper yet. I'm trying, but she's at least noting the urge. You know, for me, sometimes it takes too long for me to note it. And I love, Jamie, your idea of lying on the floor, but I want to add to that, for those of us who are mobility compromised, we should lie on the bed, because if I lied on the floor, I would never get up again.
Absolutely. Comfort and safety are important in being able to let go, right? I mean, yeah. So, yeah, however you relate to gravity is important. But I just want to say, in response to what Eric's kind of question is, as I like to say to my students, Rome wasn't built in a day. So if you give yourself the task, each day I'm going to sit for 5 minutes and be with my breath and my body. For 5 minutes in the day, I'm going to lie down, give over to gravity. And for 5 minutes a day, I'm going to stand up. If you can't give yourself 15 minutes total in the day for your body wisdom, then you've got to radically change your life. But just start easy, because as we know, it is the repetition, it is the daily practice, right, that allows us to, in a sense, rewire our habits.
I would like to introduce Amy Lee, who just joined, who does a lot of work, has a full studio and platform set up exactly for this. So if you have any suggestions, Amy?
Yeah, so there's a couple ones. Let's start with what Eric was talking about their, what do you call it, breaks or interruptions. What I call it is connect with heart. So one of the first thing that I want to emphasize is your eye contact. So like, for example, I'm looking at you. Now I'm actually staring in a little green dot, but I have that eye contact with you. And what's unfortunately the way the Zoom design depends on how many people I have in the room. Your self-portrait is tend to be lower. So we are coming here and we are looking at ourselves, because humans tend to have this nice interaction that we want to make sure we look good on the camera, right? So we will tend to, but our experience provided to other people, we're looking at like this. We're not really having real human connections. So one of the suggestion is, you know, consider putting like a little cute baby photo next to your camera, or a little cat or whatever, you know, anything make you smile, like, you know, flower, you know, like something you actually staring on it, but you actually providing that eye contact, because it's not about you, it's really about the other person's experience, right? So that's first thing. The other thing is considering adding like improv exercise in your, like, you know, in your typical, like say one quick one could be like, you know, like one person start, like you take a break, like say if you're in a group meeting, you take a break, you say, hey, how about like, let's do this, you know, work game where you say one word and the next person say another word, the next person say another word. All of a sudden you had this beautiful story that you already created by the end, like everybody get a good laugh, you know, that's just one example. Another thing that I typically do, like, you know, sometimes when you're asking people to speak up, we tend to be like hesitant of like, oh, who's speaking, and there's dead silence. So I started doing this snowball effect. So like, let's do the snowball to the next person, boom. And then we had to like fully animate it, you know, so all of a sudden you actually exercise your shoulder. You see that? This is a full movement that I'm all of a sudden feel much better, right? You see that? And then we had to do it to that person. And then you can go to the gallery view, right? Like say if you go to the gallery view and you can identify who has, you know, spoken, who has not. You can say, I am gonna do my snowboard to Lenore. And then Lenore had to catch it, right? You Lenore had to be like, oh, like see, all of a sudden you like, work on your fingers, work on your shoulders, you're shaking a little bit, everybody's laughing. You get that attention back to the classroom already, or the meetings, right? That's like another thing. And then like, I know in the international whole person group, Eileen and I, you know, our group have started to kind of doing this, you know, very fun, you know, like a little bit of everybody lead a little session at the beginning or at the end of the meeting. And that's been really beautiful. Like one time we did one, is like, you come in, how many times you go to a meeting, you don't remember each other's name. And oftentimes you come into a Zoom meeting, you don't remember everybody's name, right? So this is a fun exercise, like say your name, make a sound in animal, start with the first letter of your first name and do the animal dance. And everybody have to copy you, right? And so really is a neuroscience trick to engage your visual, you know, the animal, the sound, you make a sound, it's just audio memory, so visual audio memory, and sensory, right? You see the person's moving, you know, and then you had to copy them, right? Like I can even do a quick demo, like if you guys, you want to do that? Okay, so like my name is Amy. I am in apes, you know, so I'm gonna be like, I'm Amy, the apes. And then so you guys have to copy me, and everybody say, okay, like say 1, 2, 3, ready? Amy, the apes. Right? And then so all of a sudden I can say, all right, let me do the snowboard to Eileen.
I'm Eileen. I'm an IBIC.
Okay.
That is, it's one of those creatures I can't think of anything with an I, but I'm
Yeah.
one of
Okay. All right, so everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. Eileen.
IBIC.
IBIT. Right? So you see, like this can really like make the whole engagement really fun. It's not just this sort of boring Zoom meeting, right? The other thing that really fun is like you could actually do like photos. Like say I'm gonna do a heart. So like, you know, if everybody do that, we could actually create a lot of hearts and engagements. You know, even if you just take a little break, I say, okay, everybody put your like, you know, we can create like a little heart. See, like, you know, and, you know, like we could go back to this recording. You turn around and you start to connect with people, right? So you can make it the whole experience really fun, right? Oh, you can like, everybody do like, you know, that music theater, like pointing at someone and you're all pointing on somebody because your screens are different. You say, all right, so take a photo of that, you know? Right? So there's like a lot of sort of fun, engaged things that you could implement to like make the whole experience more engaging. And so this is a really crucial what Eric's saying. And I think as a therapist, you know, you guys probably wanted to think about like what are some of these components, you know, that I can implement, right? And then there's ways that Zoom actually tracks the time. So like there's a little clock up there. I know it's kind of like hard to engage in other things. You could put like a little alarm clock, like say you have 20, 20, 20. And I love what Nano is saying. Have a little break in that 20 and think about, oh, you just tell the group ahead of time. Like say you're in a group meeting, you tell the group ahead of time, say, we're gonna do a break in 20 minutes. Okay, if I don't remember, hold me accountable for that. You don't remind me. So now you have a whole team that actually remember, you know, like if you don't remember, somebody will say, hey, aren't we supposed to take a break? Right? Just like think about how do you do it in like a real sort of like imagine you in a real office environment. And then a lot of things is like really think about if you are a 3-year-old child, like, you know, like I'm just come to Zoom, I'm like, oh my God, there's a lot of faces, let's play. Right? So carry that spirit, like, you know, and will make a huge differences. Yeah. The other thing that very quick I wanted to cover is it's the lighting. So like right now you can see I'm in outdoor lighting, which is like this open shadow. So my first photography professor is actually Michael Jackson's personal photographer. So I learned a lot about lighting. It's like traditional darkrooms, right? So for portrait shots, and when you're on Zoom, is actually you all portrait shots, right? So the best lighting source is open shadow, which I'm in right now. And then the second one is window light. So if you're indoor, try to sit as having like a big open window. Those are the most beautiful lights. And then if you in the more like say, like, you have to turn on the light in the evening, or like your room lighting is not very good, do not ever put backlighting in the back, because you're gonna look dark. You look like a horror story. Do not ever put lighting from the bottom, because it's gonna be go up like this, and like ceiling light, those are bad. So like try to invest, I bought like some of these light rings, like a clip, I can just put it on my computer, put it more in front. And then, if you have like lighting with more white lighting, a lot of these little filter or like light rings, a lot of them have 3 settings. So that is also something worth investing, where like Jamie emphasized the sound and I emphasize the lighting, because, imagine like say your patient looking your face, you want to connect with them, right? Eye contact is one thing, but if your half a face look in the dark, half a face look in the light, and when you speak something to them, even though it's coming from your heart, it's really kind, they see this face is kind of like they might not feel safe, may not feel comfortable, right? If you have a face like a dark lighting from the bottom, you're gonna look kind of a little bit mean something. Like you're not very, like you, even though your heart is very kind, you might appear on your face and you might not even realize that you could come across kind of your facial expression kind of mean or upset or something. So those are like some things to watch out. And then another thing is, if you're hosting a group event, always try to spotlight yourself. Like, because sometimes if somebody come in and then, they make a sound, or sudden they take over. So they kind of interruption for other people. Like say you're doing a presentation, all of a sudden another person pop on the main screen. So like always try to put yourself on spotlight so other people won't be interrupting you, So that's like what I call it, like look awesome, sound good, and connect with heart. Like the 3 components that I emphasize, on our the other day's Zoom, present like master online teaching presentation. I think Jamie covers a lot about the sound.
Amy,
Yeah.
thanks. We're almost near the end, so if
Okay,
you don't mind,
sure.
I think that's a lot to digest. And I just all of us, just let's take a deep breath,
Sure.
let it out, everybody, and just think about all the information that we just took in and release it, and come back to ourselves, our own balance. Feel your weight in the chair or wherever you are. What I like to do is just rock forward and backward a little bit until you've come back to where is your center and your balance point, where you don't need your muscles to hold you up, and you're just comfortably balanced in your chair so that you can relax your shoulders, relax your face. Take a few deep breaths, empty out, because we all have to go on to another meeting or whatever it is. So really digest this meeting. We are biological creatures. We need to digest information and release it as we do any other nourishment. Feel yourselves again. Before we end, I would just like to add one thing that really hasn't been touched on here, which is touch. It's come up before, but we're so deprived of touch on Zoom. We've done some butterfly hugs and self-hug. We end a group often this way. So one of the questions that came up in our group, yes, we can all join too.
Topic.
I need a good kiss also.
You said, look, he understands English.
Let's just try, Tricia, if you'll try with me. one of the questions is that also in therapy, we feel the vibrations in the room. We feel people's energies. We've talked about eyes, ears, brain. The body is a sensing organism. So one of the things is just try this. If we reach out, can we actually, and let's all try together. Imagine you're touching with your hands. Let's come towards the screen. Can we feel a connection? And let's try together. Where are you? Where are you? Giselle, Eric.
Sorry, I'm just commenting on some of the comments that we've had online, and I just wanted
Right. And we sometimes end, with this. So from my heart to yours, and just, it's a wonderful way to get a stretch that brings an emotion and connection as well. We can even make the stretch bigger. And so we're stretching arms and shoulders while connecting to each other, which is really important when we're on Zoom. And again, take a breath, come back to ourselves, because there's a rhythm of connecting and then disconnecting and coming back to oneself. Rhythm is really important on Zoom. Information, breath, release. Take a moment, and if there's any final words from anyone who hasn't spoken, wait, let's yeah. Oh, please, Lenore.
Yeah. And I also
I was getting ready if somebody wanted to speak quickly, because I was going to get ready to end. But go ahead, Marilyn. I think you wanted to say something.
I'm just going to say, someone who hasn't had a chance to speak yet.
I haven't been able to speak. I just wanted to comment. We've had a lot of individuals who have been commenting on the group page. There's something also to consider is sitting on a yoga ball. There's a lot of new yoga balls. We've talked about lighting. We've also talked about the Think app that you can set up with reminders. It's also an affirmation app that you can use to also set up reminders to do some of the things that Eric was mentioning, as well as Jamie. So that's something also to consider. And some people were asking as well as what is in some of the name brands of the microphones you asked for. So I'm usually checking to see if anybody comments, and this was obviously one that a lot of individuals were commenting on. So that's why I'm in the background always checking to see if there's anybody commenting or attempting to reach us. So yeah, I wanted to make those comments. If there's any additional questions, please let us know just by adding. I know that there were certain people who are having difficulty signing up or trying to attempt to get in. So yes.
And I did put the microphone name in the chat, just so you see it there. The AT 2020 USB Plus.
That's great. So with that, I think this has been one of the outstanding presentations. It will be posted as a video on the COVID IPV Facebook account. I believe Patricia is also posting it on the Instagram account as well. We have an Instagram account that's also called @COVID-IPV. Am I correct? Okay. I don't Instagram. I don't tweet either, but we do have a Twitter account that others in our group use, and a couple of other social media accounts. So look for us there. Did you just want to say something, Jamie?
Just very quickly, I know we've given a lot of information and ideas and resources, and because it can all become a little overwhelming at times, I just want to come back to a beautiful Zen saying, which is, everything is perfect and there's always room for improvement.
That's lovely.
Everything is perfect and there's always room for improvement. So that's just a way to take the pressure off. Yeah.
Next week, we're going to do a little bit more improvement. This time, next week, we're going to talk about resilience and building resilience. Hopefully, we're going to have presenters from both groups, from those who are going to look at the research as we did today, and those who are going to look at how we implement that research, that we actually can use it and help the professionals that we're working with and the people who are recipients of the work that we do, who are using it. You know, we have over 500 followers who are listening to these videos, which is quite exciting, that people really need. And during COVID, we have a lot of ability to use our skills and to develop new skills and new habits. So next week, we're going to talk about how to build up our resilience and help us for those of us who experience trauma, help us both prevent some of the seriousness of the trauma in advance, if we have some resilience in reserve, and how to build it up when we've used some of our resilience because of experiencing some trauma. How do we rebuild it? And so I look forward to seeing everybody for another wonderful discussion. Thank you so much to Eric and to Jamie and Eileen for co-hosting with me. And we'll see everybody again next week.
Stay tuned for more advertising as well as any questions that you may have. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.